there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley. It's a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love creative people and what they do and how they hang in, and I love talking to them about their journeys. And today my guest is someone who's been on the podcast before, Emerson Collins. He is an actor as well as a producer. He is appearing now in the one-person show, Buyer and Cellar, written by Jonathan Tollins, who has also been on the podcast. Emerson is doing that here in Los Angeles for a few weeks. I saw it last night. It's delightful. He's wonderful. And every time I see this piece, I pick up something new from it. And it's also just a really good time at the theater. Emerson is also a producer. He works with Del Shores and produces all of Del's projects. And they have a wonderful family vibe going with all of their people. And they were all there last night at the show. And that was very cool to see. So I had a great conversation with Emerson. I'm excited for you guys to hear it. But before we get to that, I want to remind you that this podcast, Dennis Anyone, is brought to you by me. I do it because I love it, but it doesn't make me much money, and there are some expenses that come with it. So if you want to support that, you can go to DennisAnyone.net and leave a tip in my virtual tip jar. There's also a thing there called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can just buy me a cup of coffee and say you enjoy the podcast. And I just got one of those today from a listener named Charlie, who says, I've been playing catch-up on some past episodes over the weekend and loving every minute of it. As usual, I love that. Keep up the amazing work. Oh, that's so nice, Charlie. Made my day. All right, so you can do that at DennisAnyone.net. You can also become a subscriber to DNR Studios. I'm part of a group of fun gay shows on the DNR Podcast Network. That's Derek and Romaine from the Sirius Radio history, and also they have their own thing going now for a number of years now. They're the best. Anyway, go to dnrstudios.com to learn about how you can become a subscriber to that and get my show earlier than you normally would. All right, enough for the plugs. Here now is my interview with Emerson Collins. Joining me now from West Hollywood, California, it's Emerson Collins, actor, producer extraordinaire, who is appearing now in the play Buyer and Cellar by Jonathan Tollins, who has also been on this podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Emerson.
Thank you, Dennis. It's always thrilling to be back in your glorious company.
Well, there you go. Well, you're a hustler, and I admire you because you're always up to something. And I relate to that. And but I'm also like, man, he is making the stuff happen. Do you ever have this conversation in your head? Do I have to do every goddamn thing myself? And then you realize, yes, and that's it. And then you just keep going.
Yes.
Or am I projecting?
No, I feel like it's where I relate to you so much. It's every newsletter of yours that I get. I go, oh my gosh, Dennis is constantly doing 7,000 things. And I feel like a lot of us
pay. And none of them pay, FYI.
Oh, who are you telling?
That's why I relate to your industriousness, let's say.
My favorite question is someone will say, how do I get in touch with your assistant? And I say, darling, that's so lovely. What a delightful thought.
Right.
I am the assistant and the accountant and the attorney and who do you need to reach? They're all me.
Right. You could do a pretend character and do a voice. I know some people do that. They have a fake email, all of that stuff.
The number of people that I know that have done the fake email for submissions or an assistant to make it seem. And I'm like, I can barely handle managing my email and my social media accounts. It's like people that have fake Twitter accounts or Finstas that I'm like, how do you manage something that isn't even you to begin with? I can barely handle mine that are me.
Right. And I think, who wants to live a lie? It's a tangled web.
I'm fine with living a lie. But I'm just tired.
Yeah, I hear you. You're appearing in Buyer and Cellar. It's a delightful play by Jonathan Tollins. And I think a lot of my listeners are probably familiar with the play. But why don't you just give us a little nutshell of what it's about? So to refresh people's memory if they forgot or if they never heard of it.
I love the story so much because Buyer and Cellar by Jonathan Tollins. So Barbra Streisand released a book a decade ago now called My Passion for Design. And y'all, it is the weightiest coffee table tome, and it is entirely about the building and furnishing of her home in Malibu. Every doorknob, every staircase, she took all of the photographs herself. And so when she released the book, Jonathan, being a fan, had bought it and went through it. And in it, he discovered that there's a good 10-page section about the basement of her barn where Barbra has a lot of stuff. And so she built individual shops to display her collection. So there's a doll shop, an antique store, a gift shop, a dress shop, and Jonathan thought, oh my gosh, she built a mall in her basement. And he was at a dinner party, I believe, and said, can you imagine if someone got hired to work in the mall in Barbra Streisand's basement, but they only had one customer and it's Barbra Streisand? And so that is the premise of this play. It is an actor in LA who gets a job working in Barbra Streisand's basement. And so and it's a one-person play. So you play Alex, the main character, his boyfriend, Barry, Sharon, the house manager, the guy that gets him the job in the first place, and then, of course, play Barbra Streisand and James Brolin. Excuse me. I'm allergic.
That Barbara caused you to sneeze. She felt something being impinged upon, and she was like, cursed you.
She said, something is out of season, and I don't know what's happening. And so it is. So it's a 90-minute one-act play that is a what if.
Yeah.
And what Jonathan did so brilliantly in writing it is that it lovingly skewers Barbara, because I really think it's a love letter to her. But in it discusses, what we do in proximity to fame, and then also the kind of insanity that happens to people who are so famous for so long that their ability to relate to a regular person's life or a regular person's budget or a regular person's needs is absolutely, completely gone.
Yeah. I see different things every time I see it. I've seen it probably when it first came out and a few times since. This time it really resonated, this question of, can a regular person be friends with a celebrity? Can it be a real friendship? And my own experience tells me no. But I'm sure you've had some proximity to famous people. What do you think of that? Is it possible?
I think that at a certain point in a certain kind of famous person's life, it's no longer possible to make a new, substantially real friendship with a regular person.
Right.
For one, like the circumstances, and two, also, in the generous way, the amount of protection it requires to be that well known and know that when people meet you, they know so much about you or could know so much about you. And it's not that you couldn't meet a person you would have a great real connection with. It's that you sort of need to assume they know you. And then also for a lot of them, there's an element of, and most people want something from you.
Right.
There's on the silliest level, right? Just the photo that they can post on their Instagram. And how do you make a new relationship with somebody who's so very aware of your celebrity? Because I have had an interesting journey, and it's because of Del Shores, my work husband. I've met a number of extremely famous people that he has worked with that I would say I became very friendly with.
Right.
He has very real friendships with. But unless you do like a long TV series together, I think that kind of circumstance can build a real friendship. But for the rest of it, you're not becoming friends with Britney Spears. You're just not.
Well, and even if it seems real, I think the famous person is always more important. And they can tell you, oh, no, we're the same. But it's not. Inside, they're thinking, I'm more important. Like if somebody's busy, no one's ever as busy as the famous person. Because the famous person's famous, and they've got to be. You can't possibly be busier than them.
And how do your needs even end up equal? Because even if they're the generous kind, it's like, sure, but they only have this one day free out of the next 200, so you sort of default to them. And I think there's a few, right? Like I think Dolly Parton is probably in the rare category where she would not treat you that way, or even think my time is worth more because I'm more famous than you. But I don't know how you become that successful for that long and don't end up a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
When your every whim and every need is indulged and there's somebody around you who wants to say yes to everything that you want or can think.
Right.
I don't know how you don't get a little seduced by that, even if you're a truly, truly wonderful person to begin with.
Yeah, because in the play, Alex and Barbara, began a kind of friendship. And and you're wondering, where does this go? What's going to happen? And you always feel like Alex it's not going to go well for Alex.
It is so lovely. This is the third time I've done the play. The backstory of mine is rather hilarious because Michael did it in New York. Michael Urie did it in New York in 2013, did the big tour in 2014 and London in 2015. So I saw it in 2014 here in LA with him, and he is a comedic genius. And what he and Jonathan crafted in this is stunning. I got the audition notification for the first ever regional production. So the first licensed outside of New York, where it was just Urie and Christopher Henke and Barrett Foa that had done it, was going to be done in Palm Springs by Coyote Stageworks. I submitted myself, And I woke up on a Tuesday morning after having had my appendix removed in emergency surgery the night before.
Wow.
In the hospital at Cedars-Sinai, checking my phone, which probably tells you I have some kind of problem.
No, you're just trying to make this shit happen.
It is what we have to do. But that's the thing. I always joke that I would love to get successful enough. I don't want to be famous where like people want to harass me at a grocery store. I want to be famous enough that I can post something on Instagram and put my phone down. And if it sets the world on fire, it doesn't matter. Like that kind of like, just walk away, do what you want. So I'm in the hospital in recovery, get this audition notification on a Tuesday for an audition on Friday. So I spend the next 3 days, again, I was like, I can't miss this. Every gay theater actor I know between the ages of 25 and 40 in LA and Palm Springs, this is the thing for us to do. And so I spend 2 days trying to learn a monologue while high on Percocet because I've just had surgery. And so I sort of get through it. And on Friday, go to the audition and I get there and I know the guy running the audition. He was like, you can have a seat. We're a little behind. And I was like, I'm fine because I have jeans on for the first time in 3 days. I can't button them because all of the stitches are still in my belly button and the sides and like right above my groin. Like if I sit down, it will take me 30 minutes to stand back up because engaging my abs hurts.
Right.
So I go in, do the audition. They're like, great. Larry Rabin was my original director, a truly, truly wonderful man. They said, we're doing the callbacks this afternoon. Can you come back? So Blake has driven me there. We just go wait like in the car. Because I was like, if I go lay back down again, I'm not getting up. Do the full callbacks. And I do not tell them. I've just had surgery and I'm standing in front of you like on pills. And maybe that helped.
Yeah.
Wonderfully relaxed for that audition. So it wasn't until they called to say that I got it that I was like, great. Because here's the hilarious experience I had last week auditioning for you. And so I did that original production in Palm Springs, and it was a very interesting experience for me, as I've done a ton of theater, obviously, but it's a very different bridge to cross the line into thinking like me on a stage 100% by myself with a piano bench and a chair is enough for an audience to buy tickets and come. Like, right. It's just you. Are you enough? And then a lovely exercise as an actor in forgiving yourself for any mistake or any moment that you didn't love immediately, because every next line is also yours. In a real play, you do something weird while the other person's talking, you can be in the moment and present, and part of your brain be like, I didn't love that. That's not great. So let's pick that back up.
Yeah.
And just letting it go. And had so much fun with that one that the Laguna Playhouse came to see our production and loved it and just bought the whole production. And I did it again the next year. In 2016 at the Laguna Playhouse.
I love it. What is it that moves you about it? Because just as a viewer of the play, it means different things to me now than it did then. Now I have more appreciation for, what an artist Barbra Streisand has given, all the work she's given us. Back then I was more into the gossip and isn't she difficult and, all of that stuff. And now I'm more like, wow, look at all that stuff.
Same, because I joke. It's funny. I very much had an Alex journey with Barbra because when I got cast in this, I was like, this is Barbra to me as a child growing up in a Southern Baptist home in Texas. Barbra was Hello Dolly to me before she was anything else. And of course, to like theater people, it's like that was such a thing because it was Carol and all the. It's like I learned Barbra like from the wrong thing. And so the minute I got cast, Blake, my boyfriend, said, now you have to go to Barbra boot camp because there's a lot of things you don't know that you need to know before you do this piece. Because he is one of those Barbra people.
Right.
He owned this coffee table book when I got cast. We did not have to order a copy of it. He already actually owned the book.
Yeah.
And now, and at that point, originally I was like, oh, this is fun and funny. And I did start that production sort of in awe of her life work, but also enamored by the ability to be that successful that you once messed up a lyric, right? The big, she messed up the lyric to people in the Central Park show. And then she didn't do another public concert for 28 years because of that, one tiny thing she messed up that, definitely no one else cared about.
Right.
And I admire the perfectionism of that because I think a lot of us as artists, right, have perfectionist tendencies. It's why we keep doing things. There's an element of, I want to get it perfect. I want to do it right. I want to create something and it be exactly what I envision in the world. Most of us have to make compromises for budget, for time, for opportunity. But it's fascinating to see someone who reached a level that they can go, I don't care how crazy you think I am who I am, so I get to demand what I want.
Right. We're going to edit the fish.
Now,
she edited the fish in her koi pond, right?
Yeah, literally.
She didn't want orange ones, right?
No orange ones, just black and white.
Yeah.
They look better.
Clashes.
And like, that's where the line is, right? Because like that makes you kind of bonkers in your koi pond.
Right.
But as an artist, we've talked about this a lot lately in my own life of if I had all the money, because as I've grown in my career, sometimes now I do have all the control. There are things that I would want to do that would make someone working for me in some department say, he's absolutely unreasonable because that's so much. And you go, yeah, but it's what I want. So let's figure out how to make it happen. You know, when you hear the stories of the mirror has two faces and the things, you know, if I had 100% control, I don't know how different I would come off to her, right? Because whoever's not inside your vision thinks, well, that you're an insane person for asking for that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but we have all the money and all the time, so do what I want. I mean, I find some of that a little bit hilariously inspiring, really.
Yeah, it's
when it crosses over into your life. Yeah. When it's like your life and friendships, that makes you a crazy person. Yeah. But, you know, in your work, I mean, I would love to be able to do that. I've got all the money, so make the whatever happen.
Yeah.
And it does, because you're Barbra Streisand.
Yep. There are a few meta moments in the play that I thought I wanted to ask you about. There's a play that Alex, your character, did at the Zephyr Theater called Accepting Stephen, which is like a gay coming out story. But you've worked at the Zephyr Theater doing
so
gay
many
stories.
Times.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was in the original script, right?
It is. And it's also clearly hilariously like Jonathan's original send-up of, let's be honest, I have done some really gay plays because of Del Shores, but what he's clearly referencing is those gay plays that we know from the like 90s, early 2000s of like, let's just get boys on stage and we'll have a few of them naked and that will sell tickets to like gay men of a certain age. Because sometimes, but I don't even laugh as hard as he does in the play at that, because part of it was a result of we didn't have a lot of stuff for us. And not all of our community is inherently theater-going people.
Right.
So if you're telling a niche story for a niche audience and you need to make sure that enough people show up that you can do the show, if you got to get some dicks out, I don't judge that anymore either.
I'm nostalgic for those shows. I love the shows. That was like, you know, I had a running joke with my friend Jim David that they were going to start doing Gay Nude, The Most Happy Fella.
Why
gay
not?
Nude, Camelot.
Yes.
And just
honestly,
like a twist, but it's gay and nude.
I have got to sell tickets to the rest of this performance because the sixth act has been wonderful. My friends, Lisa DeWeird and Matt Levitt, came to me 3 months ago and they said, we had wanted to do it together originally. And the theater, they couldn't get the rights. It was super early in the run. And so they came to me and said, you know, we don't have anything this fall. Would you like to do this? We talked about doing it. And I said, I would love to. None of my LA friends got to see it. I love this piece. Back to what you actually asked, you know, my encounter with it this time is so much more forgiving and giving to Barbara, I think, than I was originally. Just aware of all of the things that add up to that. But now I need to sell the tickets. So if I need to put on like a midnight late show and do the whole show naked, you know, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, you'll do what you have to do, you know?
Sell tickets.
Yeah.
Bring the boys in. I mean, I literally had friends last night who were there who said, I'm not really an arty person, but I laughed for the whole 90 minutes and I really loved it.
All right. That's good. I'm not really an arty person is a great way to start a sentence.
Correct.
There's also a reference to Crate and Barrel at the Grove where I worked seasonally not that long ago, like pre-pandemic. Yeah. And so I could have actually delivered the thing that you bought from, you know, like there's another meta moment.
Oh, when I first moved to LA to do Southern Baptist Sissies for Dell with Leslie Jordan and Dale Dickey at the Zephyr Theater, and Levi Christ would come in and sing the theme song after the show. It was like 8 blocks from the Grove, and I went to the Grove all the time because I could go for, you know, you park outside the Grove so you don't pay the parking fee, and then you can go inside and walk around this lovely atmosphere without buying anything or spending any money. I used to do it all the time.
Yeah, and now the parking at the Grove, people, if you want to start a war in LA, bring up that topic. People have had it.
Literally that.
Last night was your opening night, and Del Shores was there, and all the Del Shores family was there. And I was like, I know I'm going to see this person and this person, and they're all there. I'm very moved by that family you guys have, right? Isn't it wonderful?
Yes, I feel really fortunate, and it speaks to Dell and the kind of work that he does and the way he brings people in, that we do have this like massive sort of extended universe of people that have worked with him at any point. And honestly, first it comes from, he is such a great writer and writes so specifically in the characters for the actors that actors fall in love with the part.
Right.
And, and sort of do this, like, I'll do anything for you. I mean, the caliber of people that have worked for us for no money, because, for those at home, I produce all of Dell's work now and have for the last 15 years, theater, television, and film. And our deal is I will produce it for you if I get to be in it. And that seems to work out pretty well for both of us, since that's most of the work that I have done is creating it ourselves, back to our original conversation.
Right.
But so it means like Rue McClanahan came and worked scale in Sordid Lives, the series. Bonnie Bedelia and Leslie Jordan and Caroline Rhea and Whoopi Goldberg came and did a cameo in A Very Sordid Wedding, where she drove her bus to Canada for 27 hours to come do this like one scene for us, because she loved Sordid Lives, the series, so much, and watched it because Caroline Rhea is one of her best friends. And so last night, definitely, I joked that it was sort of somewhere between like Blake and my wedding that hasn't happened yet and my memorial funeral service, because it was a bunch of our extended Sordid universe and then a bunch of the casts of Matt Levitt's The Boomerang Effect and the $5 Shakespeare Company that I did for them at the Sixth Act. And then like some of my gays from various parts of my life. So it felt like I gave a command performance for people who were obligated to show up. Many of whom would not necessarily
obligated. That's the thing.
No,
they weren't, but
yeah.
they did. They do. Yes. They could get out of it. They could be like, I have a thing.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I feel very fortunate to have built an artistic family. And it's also people you show up for, right? You know this better than anybody. You run a monthly thing that like people continuously come to, and you start to remember, right? The people who always show up when you say like, this is the big one or the anniversary show. And maybe you don't come to every mismatch, but you see it once or twice a year.
Yeah.
You know the people that show up for you. So when they do something, you make sure you show up for them, right? Like at a certain point, you become aware of, I really love that person, but in a decade, they haven't come to a single thing of mine. And I've been to these like 10 things of theirs, and maybe I don't keep going to theirs because you could find time to come to something.
Yeah.
And I will forever remember the people that come see the show. I have aggressively promoted it to everyone who's ever liked a thirsty selfie of mine on Instagram or that I know in any capacity in Los Angeles. I have said, this is the one that matters. If you have a Friday or Sunday free in the next 4 weeks, please come. And it means the world to me that those people are showing up. And of course, the Sixth Act fan base, and hopefully people from hopefully good reviews, it gets to a wider audience as well.
Well, I thought you did a great job. You have a very natural charm as yourself. When you're just talking as yourself, it's very winning. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that, like, and Alex is a little dippier, I would say. My Alex is taking, my personality and then pushing it to a lighter, more Labrador place. But we talked a lot about, like, the audience has to really, really, really fall in love with Alex, right? That's the first premise. Is you have to like think this sweet man is on a journey you want to go on him with, in order to enjoy like staring at this person for 100 minutes. The switching of the characters, and so my Alex is very flaily and very like light and bright and sort of all over the place, and it lets Barry be sort of bright.
Alex sits cross-legged on the floor and then stands up without using his hands.
And I
was like, yes,
like he's one of those.
Going back to Barbara's book, when you held it up last night as part of the show, that font, the cover font, My Passion for Design.
Yes.
That is the most ornate font.
Yes.
Fonts say a lot to me. It's like I always infer things from them. That is the busiest, ornate, like there's no possible way to have more curvature.
Oh, so many book editors were like, can we please simplify? Can we please?
We can't read it. It's very hard to read. It feels like a windy mountain road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to get all the way up into it. No, that she went.
Font.
And I can imagine the meeting where she finally said, my picture's on the book. They'll get it.
Yeah, exactly. My Passion for Design font, though, is a lot. With that cursive, it's a lot.
In every, yes.
Have you ever worked retail in real life?
Mm-hmm. That line where she says, as much as we appreciate the Banana Republic sale rack, directly out of college, my younger brother had worked at Banana Republic, so I got a job doing visual design at a store, Banana Republic store in Dallas, that I worked at weekdays 6 to 3 or 7 to 4, while I did 18 shows in 3 years immediately after college. So I would get up at
6 in the
5:30.
morning. Wow.
Yes. Because visuals all before the store opens at 10. And so I would get up at 5:30, drive to Banana Republic, work from 6 to 10, go to my car where I had a body pillow, set an alarm for 53 minutes, sleep, and then have 7 minutes to get back to the store and clock back in for the second half of my shift, to then go home, like do a workout, and then go to rehearse whatever show I was doing. Because I worked 40 hours a week at Banana Republic and did 18 plays, musicals, Shakespeare in the Park in 3 years in Dallas. And the last play of those 18 was Dell's Southern Baptist Sissies, which he flew in to see and asked me to move to Los Angeles to be in his revival. So, oh yes, I was a Banana Republic girly.
Well, I like Banana Republic. I still shop there.
Same.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like those traveler pants. Yeah.
Although even now it's a lot of, I got to wait for a sale.
Yeah, no, you do. And when they have sales, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. The sales are pretty good. Wow, that's a lot. But you must have a visual flair. Were you good at it?
Yes. And, though it's funny in the book of Gay Genes, I definitely have like a design sensibility. So I relate to Barbara's thing.
You have a passion for design.
I do a little bit. My budget still in life has not yet reached the point where I can really indulge it that much.
Right.
But yeah, no, I definitely have, I enjoy the aesthetic of what looks like a well-balanced display or a picture window, or how does this settle together? In fact, I wouldn't do the stuff that Banana Republic corporate sent out. I would do it. They send you a thing. There's not much creativity.
You were a maverick? You were a maverick?
Make the table look like this. But what I would do is I would track the sales percentages of the items on a fixture.
Of course you
would. And if
if
it wasn't doing well, I would change it out. And so then they'd come and do walkthroughs to make sure your store looked the way it's supposed to. And they'd be like, why is this here? And I'd be like, because it's making 23% more with this on the fixture than it was with that thing that wasn't selling. So this room is selling at 12% above our normal average because of where the things are.
You have receipts.
I did. When I moved to LA, because they kept trying to hire me in to be really work in the company. And I was like, I'm trying to be an actress. This is just a fun day job. But they said when I moved here, part of how I felt comfortable moving to LA, they said, if you want to work at any store in Los Angeles, when you get there, give us a call and we'll get you, at your local store. And literally went to the Banana Republic at the Grove just in case I needed it as my backup job.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's there. And I can feel good about moving to LA to be a theater actor, which is not a journey people often make.
But that's amazing that Dell saw you in his play and was because he knows so many actors. He was like, we got to import this one.
Because for those who've seen the movie, and we made the movie of it, in my original production of Southern Baptist Sissies, I played Benny, who grows up to be the drag queen. So that's what I played in LA and on the national tour. And then in the movie, we switched me to Mark, the narrator character. But that's the reason it worked out, because Dell told me at the time, I either find drag queens who can't handle the monologues, or I find actors who can't really do the drag. And so he did. It was sort of that specific role was the one that was harder to cast. And Scott Presley, who was a drag queen named Belair, who used to do Legendary Bingo in Los Angeles at Mary's, he played the role, but because of his other job doing drag, that was his money job, he couldn't do all the performances. So I came to share the role with Scott Presley. So that's how the universe sort of aligned for me to be the exact peg to fit the hole that Dell was looking for.
What was it like when you first came to LA? Was it intimidating?
I was terrified. I drove out to Los Angeles the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because we were starting rehearsals that following Monday. And I went to Thanksgiving. Dell invited me to Thanksgiving at his house. Well, I didn't know anybody. So I pulled up to their house in the Hollywood Hills on Laurel Canyon. And I sat in my car for a good 20 minutes, working up the nerve to walk up to ring the doorbell. Because at that point I had just met Dell and his ex-husband Jason at my show in Los Angeles. And I had talked to the costume designer Craig Taggart on the phone. And that was it. And I was like, 25. Oh my gosh. What if they decide this was all a mistake? And I walk into his house, and through the course of the afternoon, it's 80 of his closest friends and family, including many of the people that were at the show last night.
Of course.
Rosemary Newell Alexander, Ann Walker, Debbie Holiday, Leslie Jordan was there. It was my first meeting with Leslie Jordan was on the doorstep of Del Shore's house on Thanksgiving. But they wwere also wonderful and lovely and delightful that at the end of the day, I went home and was like, okay, these seem like really great people. And then I was terrified until my very first time in rehearsal, because Scott would do the rehearsals, that I got up to do one of the monologues, and there was no like, we're going to ease ourselves in. It was like, okay, Emerson, you do it. And I still remember the feeling of doing the first monologue with the LA cast all in the room, thinking like at the end of this, I hope they don't go, we've made a mistake and you should go home.
Right.
And of course they were like, okay, fine, moving on. I think Dell's one comment was like, you can slow it down a little bit. It was probably a little fast for my excitement. And then off we went.
So you work with Dell on producing things for Dell. You strike me as someone who has the left brain and the right brain going really strong, both of them. I feel like you could break our hearts with some monologue, and then you could also fix the software on the computer so that the tickets go to the thing and the thing and the thing and the algorithm. And like, I feel like you have both sides of that brain.
It is something that I discovered in this process. You know, I was definitely an academic-oriented student.
Right.
But working at the theater with Dell, I sort of sat backstage. We were doing all 3 shows in rep, and I was like, some of this could work smoother and be a little less effort. Can I make a suggestion?
I have a few charts here. Like that feels like you got that sort of analytical side.
It is that. It's like I have a list of questions, a chart, a plan, like a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F for like if this doesn't go that way. And I didn't realize till a little later that like that isn't how, you know, everyone processes, that I do sort of manage to speak the language of the like spreadsheets and timetables, as well as the like fun frou-frou artist conversation, and meld the two together. I sort of fell backwards into going, oh yes, producing is a skill set that I have that seems to work really well together. And if it means I get to be an actress, I will keep doing it.
Well, I just feel like some dilemma would come up in a project and they're like, give it to Emerson, he'll figure it out. Like, I feel like you can figure out anything.
That is the way. So when my mother was like, what does it mean you're a producer? And I said, mine is the name that gets yelled when something is going wrong.
Yeah.
And my favorite on this story, when we did Southern Baptist Sissies, the movie, I'm playing Mark. We did all the work leading up to it. You know, I've got all the ADs and Dell's going to direct, and I have the most lifting to do in the filming of this piece. But I've got it all planned. But I'm the person unlocking the building in the morning to let everyone in to get started setting up. I'm doing the accounting paperwork for payroll on our lunch break. While I've made sure that everyone has gotten the food that I ordered from Kung Pao Bistro to be delivered to the theater.
Right.
And then we had a day that was my big emotionally heavy lifting day. That's the funeral at the end of Southern Baptist Sissies, and it's a lot, and it's tears. And when you do that, you know, for a movie, it's like you feel like you're crying all day long. And Dell came to me at one point and said, "A thing has happened, but I think I've got it covered. You know, you just be the actor. Don't worry about it." And I was like, okay, I'm not going to ask, but I really want to ask what it is because I can do, like, this is fine. This is the job.
Seed has been planted. A seed has been planted. And
also, it's the job of being an actor. Whether you're the producer or not, you still have to move while they reset the lights.
Right.
So then he came back and he was like, okay, it's a different problem. He was like, they were having to pay for the parking across the street. And I went over and asked them, I said, you know, could we get a deal because we're filming across the street? And they said, wait, you're filming. We need to see your permit. And then we could, you know, talk about a discount. And I was like, okay. I budgeted for everyone to pay for the parking across the street. The free days that we got here, the last 4 days, were just bonus. Like, we're already under budget in the parking. And we didn't tell the city of West Hollywood that we were filming because we're inside a theater. So it technically shouldn't matter because it's a $5,000 permit.
Right.
And so we don't have one. And so I would have just said, just pay it and let's keep going with our day. So then a representative of the West Hollywood came to our theater and said, I'm sorry,
my stomach is in knots, right? Like, I just want to...
you can't keep shooting without a permit. And so I put on my dumbest, blondest, Alex puppy dog face and was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize. I mean, I really didn't think because inside the theater, because it's like we're not doing any relocation. We're just like in our home, essentially. And they were like, and we had 1 day left of shooting. And I was like, can we pay it right now? And the guy was very sweet. And he was like, if you come to my office, it's a 2-week approval process. But if you come do it right now, I can just get it to the other person to sign and you can keep going. So I walked the 2 blocks from the Matcha Theater in my costume to the permit guy's desk at the city of West Hollywood to scan the $5,000 permit fee, and then walk back and go, all right, let's keep crying and shooting this scene.
Oh my gosh! And $5,000 for a smaller budget project like that is a lot.
Yes, I was like, it would have been fine to just pay the parking. Right. They were $12 a car.
Exactly. Oh. But you tipped your hand because they need. Oh gosh, that is a cautionary tale. But you are probably easy to access tears when you think about that $5,000.
Yes, I was like, that is still one of those. I can think about that moment, and it was funny. He was like, "Oh my gosh," and I was like, Our deal is I take care of these details so that you can be creative being the director, and we have had the most wonderful creative and artistic partnership. You know, he is that. Like the older brother that I feel, I mean, he was the lightning strike in my life, right?
Yeah.
As artists, we know so many brilliant and talented people can't make a living doing it.
Yeah.
And he was the fork in the road of my life that said, hey, you come here. And I feel good about what I've made of the opportunities, but it all starts from him first saying, hey, if you can get yourself to LA, you can do half the performances in this play that I've written with Leslie Jordan and Dale Dickey. And I was like, I know him from TV. I'm on my way.
There it is. Last night at the show, I asked Dale things I should ask you about. And he gave me two little anecdotes, and he just said, ask Emerson to tell you these stories. One is about how you were doing Southern Baptist Sistis, and the stage manager was keeping track of who missed the words, how many words were missed. Do you know what I'm talking about? And, of course, you missed 0 words, right?
Yes.
And they were keeping track of who went off the script, and you missed 0. But then Leslie had something funny to say about this.
Yes. Del loves to tell this story, and it's funny because it always makes me feel weird because, like, comparing as actors is such a ludicrous thing to do, but I can't work until I know all the words.
Right.
And it's not a, like, generous thing, it's an arrogant thing. Because as an actor, once I know all the words and you tell me to move around on the stage, I'm going to have feelings about it. You know, we're collaborating together. If I don't know the words, I might just do whatever you say. But in 2 weeks, once I've memorized it, I might want to revisit that now, and then you're an asshole. So if you know it up front, it's a fun, creative conversation. But yeah, so our dear friend Rachel Sorsa was giving line notes, and he said, Dale Dickey missed 3 words, Emerson missed 0, Leslie missed a lot. And Leslie looked at Dale and said, well, some of us have other talents.
Right, I love that. And then there was a story about him pushing out a tear. Does this sound right?
Yes. I love that Del's stories for me are just Leslie Jordan comedic stories that Del Shores likes to tell. I was like, if he was on, these are the stories he would tell you.
One time Emerson was in the room and Leslie said this funny thing, but Emerson wasn't in the room.
No, listen to this story because that's literally this story. I am not a character in this story. Wait, and also this is why I have a running joke in my life that if I die suddenly early, at my funeral, there is a list of people that are not allowed to speak because they cannot get up at my funeral and say, oh, I remember meeting Emerson, and then do 10 minutes of their stand-up at my funeral.
Yeah.
And my long-running joke is that Del Shores, my dear friends Scott Nevins and Justin Martindale, are the ones most likely to get up and do comedy, so they're going to have to audition for my funeral. So here's the story. We're shooting the movie of Southern Baptist Sissies. We've shot 4 live shows. Now we're shot for 8 days as a film, as close-ups. We get to the end of the film, and it's one of my favorite things that of all of Del's work and of all of our producing is that Leslie Jordan has played this sort of ridiculous old barfly character through the whole show. And at the very end of the play, and it's a moment that Leslie asked Del for. It was not in the original play. Leslie said, I'd really like a connection to one of the sissies. And so the sweet Andrew character played in the movie by Matthew Scott Montgomery, they stop and they have this sort of on the sidewalk scene, like outside of a bar. And Leslie's character has this gravitas-filled moment where he turns to him and says, don't become me. Don't hide your light under a bushel from the world. You know, that's like teaching the next generation, don't live in shame the way I did, the way I have. And it's so stunning. It was beautiful on stage every time. And when we're shooting the movie, Del said, you know, Leslie, if you could just like squeeze out a tear there, and like, which is such an asshole thing as a director to ask for.
But
like,
you want it. It's very powerful. I get it.
Totally. But also there's a lot of ways to do it. You can use menthol and blow. You don't have to like murder one of your children in your brain to make a tear happen for a TV show. And he was like, oh, sure, I'll just drop a tear. Okay, well, I'll just go do that. And so we are standing there and we look up and shooting, and Leslie turns and he looks at Matthew Scott Montgomery and he says it. And while he's talking, his eye fills up and one tear falls down his face. And we are sitting at the monitors watching, and I'm the producer. I'm there. That's my participation in this story. And literally we grabbed each other, and I had the moment of like, that's insane. Like that we joked about it and laughed and then just said action, and then you literally did it. And he finishes the monologue, cut, there's applause in the room, and Leslie goes, Dale was like, Leslie, what did you do? And Leslie turns to him and says, I just thought of Diana Ross at Florence Ballard's funeral. You know, she died penniless, and Florence showed up in a mink coat, and Diana showed up in a mink coat.
That's the thing that got him to cry. That's amazing.
Obviously, that was not what he thought of, but that was definitely the response. And the whole story is just absolutely brilliant.
Very good.
Because he had said, I can't cry anymore. I'm on Paxil.
Oh, man. We miss him. Everyone misses him. You must miss him terribly.
I do. It's there's a, it's now in the category of like, mostly it's like beautiful to discuss,
Right.
That first year, a lot of, it would suddenly come up in conversations. Now I can joke and say, I got more text messages the day that Leslie Jordan died than I will get the day that I die. And there's something beautiful and wonderful about people knowing that you have such a wonderful, close relationship with somebody. And I think I mourn now just the loss of the things he was going to continue to get to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting here talking about theater and how many of us do it and the opportunities. And this is going to sound really narcissistic for a moment, but every time I've done this play, the reaction of my artist friends is, it's so impressive to watch you do this. I just hope you get your thing. And you know what they mean. They mean
Right.
that like that thing that crosses you over. And they mean it as a compliment. And it's like wonderfully lovely and also depressing and frustrating at the same time. But I think a lot about Leslie in that moment of, we all knew Leslie was a genius forever, right? Like we've all experienced everything he's done. His one-man shows, his theater, his like, above and far beyond the will and grace of it all, have always known that he was a rare comedic genius. And his breakout in the pandemic and wider celebrity, it was super fun to see him be like his silly self. But what I was most excited for was the opportunities it was going to continue to give him
Right.
as an artist to surprise people in work that they hadn't known. There was a massive new fan base that was going to get to enjoy new work from him.
Right.
And like that, I mourn that, as much as the like personal loss, obviously, of my friend.
Yeah.
Because he was an absolute genius, and there was such great work to be done with the power of his newfound celebrity.
You said something in that answer that kind of pinged for me when people say, I hope you get your thing. Like sometimes people come to Mismatch Game and say, this should be on TV.
Yes.
And it's a compliment. And
yes.
It also feels a little bad because you haven't been able to make it happen or something. There's something about it that is a bummer, a little bit.
Yes. I think, at our ages, once you've been doing it for a while, there's an element of you have to choose not to be bitter. I watch
to not care.
I watch my peers. It's what I enjoy about who you are as a person, like how much you're enamored by other people's work, by other people's but that becomes a choice, and an active choice.
Absolutely, it's why I do this podcast.
Because I have peers that I am watching, swing the bitter direction, and if you resent the missed, the could haves, those things. One, you don't keep the work you keep doing suffers as a result of that. And no, it's not always easy. There are days where it's frustrating. I have a wonderful man who I love dearly, and we live in a 1-bedroom apartment in West Hollywood. And I would really love to move him to a bigger home, with making the money off the thing that is the thing. But we keep choosing this because of the kind of work we want to create. And it's okay to have those moments. We all have them. There's something lovely. But I've got 6 more shows to sell of this. And part of me, it's a little terrifying to go I'm still at a place where I have to pound the pavement to get people in because I don't have a fan base. We won't go off on how LA is terrible at showing up to things because Blake and I are doing a Christmas tour and we sold 100 tickets in one city the first day in the first 3 hours of putting it on sale. But LA is a challenging city. But you do, you have to remember, why do we do this? Like, I am telling this story because I love it. I think Jonathan wrote a brilliant play. I think this particular play suits the things that I do better than a lot of people in my category very well. I think it suits the best of my skill sets as a performer. I've done, weirdly, 3 very large projects that have me talking to the audience for a lot of the show. I've learned that that suits my particular acting abilities. And you just have to, the way I look at it is, you have to celebrate the rung of the ladder that you are on every day.
That's the title of the show. That's the title of this episode.
I mean, really, if you spend always looking at how much further up the ladder you would like to get, you will always be depressed and bitter. But sometimes you need to look back at how far you've come and celebrate today. You know, I opened a one-man show that I love, that I'm proud of my work in last night, for a room full of, I knew definitely the vast majority of the people there who I respect, who I love, whose work I admire, whose friendships I cherish. And if I can't celebrate that, I should stop doing this.
Right.
You know, if I go, I wish I was doing it at a 500-seat theater.
But it's not the Taper or whatever it is.
Right. But I did it at the Laguna Playhouse for 400-seat people, and it was sold out all the time, and I don't know any of those people.
Yeah.
And this show was more special than that. So it is. But choosing joy, the further you grow as an artist, particularly in this town, becomes not just an active choice, but a necessary choice all the time.
Yeah. And it's something you have, and still things pierce it, and you go down that little hole. Yeah.
You have the days, and so make sure you have those core people, the ones that can go like, yeah, tonight we're going to have dinner and vent about it, and then we're going to be done with that, and tomorrow we're going to get back to the work.
Yeah. You are active on social media, and you talked about Instagram and thirst traps and stuff like that.
Yes.
What's cool about it? What has it brought to your life? What are the downsides? Like, sometimes I look at that, I'm like, yeah, he's using that thing. I don't have that gene. And I think if you don't have it and you try, it doesn't work.
Dennis is like being like sort of nice. I post the thirstiest, most ridiculous Speedo swimsuit photos on my Instagram.
Right.
And there's a silly answer.
And I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
Well, there's a silly answer and there's a real answer. The silly is like, one, the algorithm sucks. And you know this, every time you post something you want to promote, nobody engages with it. It's seen by like 5 people, you feel like. And you're like, why did I bother to post that I'm doing a show? Well, you post some photo of you and a famous person, and it gets like thousands of likes because everyone's so excited at your proximity to fame. Well, the same thing goes for like, as a certain kind of gay, a thirsty photo. There is a wash of people who come out to go like, ooh, yes, da-da-da-da, when's the OnlyFans coming? But those comments boosted in the algorithm. Well, here's what happens. When you have a photo high in the algorithm, your next post gets seen by more people because you are in the algorithm doing well. So if you actually look at my social media, what happens is I post a thirsty photo right before I have something to promote. So there is a method to the madness.
Of course there is. That is such an Emerson answer. That illustrates perfectly my left brain, right brain thing about you that I admire. That is brilliant.
Now, the sincere lifelong thing is like I feel very fortunate to be thin at the age I am now. But as a very young homosexual growing up in Texas, weighing 120 pounds, 6 feet tall, soaking wet, being really thin was like not masculine, you know, the kind of thing that got made fun of. And like looking at the giant like muscle guys on the early days of Instagram, I was like, I'm never going to be that. I've always loved Speedos since I was on the neighborhood swim team when I was a kid. Yeah. Also being weirdly thin, they look better than like blousy swim shorts where suddenly you realize I have toothpick chicken legs. And so the first time I ever posted one, you know, a decade ago now, people were like, oh my gosh, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, that's fun. Because I was nervous. I was like, am I going to look sad that I'm like a skinny guy and I'm not like the trainers posting whatever? And then I talked on Dell in my podcast. I talked on live streams on Periscope about like growing into my own comfort sexually as a gay man and with my body. And so I've talked a lot about it, and I've always posted it very tongue-in-cheek. Like, yes, I'm at the beach. I'm in the mood for attention today. Yeah. You know, I'm not trying to fool anybody that I think I'm a model or that I don't know what I'm doing.
And you don't do inspirational quotes like, just keep moving forward.
I am not trying to make a Hallmark card about like, you know, although it's funny, if I said
I
literally...
love those ones so much when it's just like a hot guy and he's got some deep thought.
Yes, and like and I love how hard he had to think for that thought. Yes. That's like Hallmark 101. But also, my thing is, I don't even have judgment for that guy.
No, I get it. I think it's hilarious.
he's not doing hard things. He's not hurting you. Like, if you don't want to see it, don't follow him. Like, people's angst at other people's social media is a mystery to me. I'm such a narcissist. I don't care what you're doing over there. If I don't like it, I don't follow you.
Yeah.
But I would get it. And I have real life friends who were like, Emerson, you shouldn't do that. And I was like, let's really unpack why. And someone was like, because you're better than that. Your work is better than that. I was like, but what are we saying? That like my bulge is a distraction? Like what you're implying is weirdly, vaguely anti-sex a little bit, because who cares? Half the world has a penis. Like, this is not as insane as you're acting like it is. And also, no, I'm not better than this. I need people to buy tickets to things that I do. If I was famous enough to just put it on sale, you wouldn't see me post on Instagram ever again.
Yeah. Come for the bulge, stay for the art.
Stay for the art. And so the way I have found to do social media, and also because with our projects, Del and I sold A Very Sordid Wedding. We opened that movie in 60 cities. He and I went to 45 of those cities in 6 months. We did VIP events. We did morning news shows. We did Q&As. And we sold out those screenings through Facebook events and promotion. Like, that is how we distributed that movie. And so I mean, like, people watch your socials. The amount of people when Blake and I go on tour, nobody was in P-Town with us, you know. But the people who are like, I've been watching y'all on tour. It's so great. It's so exciting. So I choose to see it as like a necessary evil. And I only do it a way that is fun for me. Part of the way I can do the promo that I need to do for my show is that in my real life, when I see something funny that I would tell my friends, I take 5 seconds and go, oh my gosh, look at this guy and his dog. That's hilarious. And then I know that I'm putting out something that hopefully people enjoy that's separate just from the promotion that I need to do, that gives me the peace of mind of like, I'm not just berating you constantly with like work I want you to consume.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I found to go through it that doesn't just feel depressing.
Yeah.
Or like whoring yourself for views.
Or not sustainable. Like I could be like, I'm going to do this right and do all this stuff. I don't think I could sustain it, even if I figured it out.
And also, there were a couple of years, right, where people built actual careers off of like having a huge Instagram account or having a huge Twitter account.
Yeah. Those
days have passed. Like, we've moved beyond it. They've sort of ruined the algorithms on them. And so there was a period where people was like, you have to do social. You might become a star, you know, because of it. I mean, Leslie literally did become a star from social media. Not that he wasn't before, but you know what I mean?
Right. He really exploded.
So now my relationship with is that I do it like just enough for me to, in a way that I can have fun with it, to then do what I still need it to do. But I would tomorrow, if I was on a TV series tomorrow, I would hire someone else to do it and be like, great, post this photo when you feel like it fits the mood. And I like would not look at it again.
There it is. Interesting. A couple of things I wanted to ask you about. You were in Rent Live when they did it on Fox.
Yes, Rent Almost Live.
Almost Live. There was I can't remember the thing. Somebody lost their voice or something, and they're...
Brennan Hunt, this wonderful man who's doing a show right now in Hollywood, actually, broke his ankle in the last commercial break in the tape rehearsal the night before the live show.
So they used the taped rehearsal as the live show.
Because like he was literally like a giant rap, like in a wheelchair. They spent all night trying to see if we could do parts of it live and parts of it from the tape, you know, stuff he's not in, and like the timing. And they just said we can't make it work with the little time there is left. And so, they used the entire tape rehearsal from that night before until the very last commercial break. And then after the last commercial break, that was the only portion of the show that was live to the broadcast. But we still did the whole show in the room, not for the broadcast. Brendan was in a wheelchair, and we just pushed him from set to set and still like sang the whole show live in the room, because like 1,000 people had tickets to come see the like live show of the live show.
Oh, so you weren't just not doing anything while it was supposed to be live.
We weren't just like watching the cameras from the night before. We still did. We sang the whole show. It sort of started like, casual, you know, like whatever. And then we just kept going and going and going. And I have videos on my phone of like what we did in the room, not for the broadcast, that made it very special, sort of in the sweet morning of like, we already did the show, but now we're going to keep doing it for each other anyway. That was really lovely and painful, and what a wonderfully sweet man who felt terrible, and a unique experience.
What was the takeaway for you from that experience? You played the character that sings "Will I Lose My Dignity," right? In the AIDS support group.
Yes.
You know, when you look back on that feels like there's a lot there, especially the live aspect of it.
It was very special because speaking of our lifelong career things, after Dell and I released A Very Assorted Wedding, I paid as much money as I could back to the investors in the movie and paid us so little that the day after we got back from our last city, I started driving for Lyft 60 hours a week. I would drive in the morning, Dell and I would work all afternoon, and I would drive at night because I didn't have any money. And I got the audition notification for Rent while driving for Lyft in a morning.
Oh my God.
I thought it was for some like local Santa Monica college or whatever production. I was like, I don't want to be a featured player in Rent. Like fell under the like, that will be depressing. I love this show. It's been important to me. You know, it came out when I was a freshman in high school. It like changed what musical theater was for all of us. That will make me sad. And my manager at the time was like, no, this is for the live one. And then my reaction was, I'm never going to get this. I can name 30 guys I know in New York on Broadway this second who would leave their show to like go do this. So I went to the audition. This wonderful casting director who I love, Ryan Temensky, brought me in. And he was like, I love the People's Couch and saw your name. And I was like, oh, so I'm really here because of the Bravo reality show.
Right.
Because I listened, 8 guys in front of me sing it. They sing it beautifully. I was like, they're just going to pick who they like. Ryan was super sweet, walked me through it. A week later, I get a call back. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, great. With the director, Michael Greif, who directed the original production of Rent. I was like, I will get to meet him. That's insane. Great. Still thinking like, again, I know so many people who have legit long Broadway credits who would go in for this. I show up, I listen. People are in there for like 40 seconds at a time, like sang through it once, goodbye. I go in. Ryan is standing there. This wonderful accompanist, Jesse Vargas, who I've done music benefits with, is playing. And it's the two of them and Michael, and that's it. And I was like, oh, this is like serious. I sing it once. And he said, I want to do it very different than the way we've done this in the show so far. I don't want to sing this for the back row. Said, I really want to use this character. There's a generation who will watch this show who were not alive during the AIDS crisis. Mm-hmm. They don't know what it was, and which is great, but I want to use this character to really demonstrate that for them. We're probably going to put KS lesions on his face. Would you be okay with shaving your head again? And I was like, I will bring the snacks and clean the bathrooms and run craft services.
Right,
what do you mean?
I will call Kung Pao Bistro if we want lunch.
So I sang it through twice more. He was like, make it smaller. He's like, I'm thinking about combining the roles. Can you sing this other piece with this? So I was in there for a good like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So I left like, well, I had a real work session with Michael Greif. This is amazing. I get a notification that I'm pinned for the role. And then I get the text that I had been cast while driving with someone in the car, in my Lyft car. So there is a wonderful woman somewhere out in the world who I turned and said, this is going to sound bonkers, but I need to, can I tell you a story? Because we have a 25-minute ride before I can call my boyfriend or my best friend or Dell and tell them that I've been cast in the live production of Rent that is happening on Fox in January. She had just moved to LA to do the CBS Diversity Showcase. So she's lit. And so like, she like screamed for me. So there's a wonderful woman somewhere who was my like first notification that I got this show. And so it was just such a spell. And so I stopped driving for Lyft like that moment. I was like, I'm going to get a real paycheck for this. Blake said, he was like, you can't do that anymore. Stop. You're going to go back to being a professional performer. That's what you're actually here to do. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Well, and also I made more money doing Rent than like 3 years of my own producing. Because like, of course, because they have money. But you asked, what was the experience? And it was really interesting being in that room because I had an imposter syndrome at the first rehearsal. Because our first rehearsal was just the 7 featured players. Jaylen Marcos, like Kiala Settle, like these people who I know, I have seen in shows. And 3 of the 6 asked me in the nicest way possible, what did you do on Broadway? But they just meant like, we all have been and we don't know, and I don't know you. So like, you know, how do you come here in the nicest way? And I was like, I come from a reality show and I haven't done a musical in a decade. And I think they maybe made a mistake putting me here.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel comfortable in that role until I stood in front of the full company and sang the Will I Lose My Dignity solo for the first time and then sat down and like no one laughed or like, you know, they went like, oh, wow. And of course they weren't going to, but you know, that imposter thing can follow you forever. Sure. And we're very sweet. But my big takeaway was standing in the room. I was like, this is so funny because I'm watching Mark Platt run around and he's really lovely. And Adam, that was his producer, and Kenneth Verone. And I was like, oh, this is hilarious because in my other job, this is what I do. You just have several more $1 million than I do to do it with. There was actually a wonderful, lovely like encouragement and like, we do the same producing.
Right.
I just have to make it worse for a lot less money.
Yeah.
But I know what every person in this room is doing. I know I'm watching and I'm like, oh, and there you go to solve that problem that I saw happening. It was actually weirdly validating to be among people whose work I admire and go like, oh, right, this is also what I do. But today all I have to do is be an actor. So that's a sort of lovely thing about it too. But I thought, oh yeah, if I had Mark Platt's budget, I could do that. Yeah. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that. No,
but it's not a different animal. It's producing. Yeah, they just have more money. That's it.
The job is jobs are the same.
Yeah.
And so it was a lovely reinforcement on that side, and then just pure joy to stand among like brilliantly talented people doing a piece that I have loved since I was a 15-year-old closeted homosexual in Texas. And to be a part of that experience was so incredibly special. And to have just been cast off my talent.
Yeah.
Like nobody knows who I am here. Michael just thinks I'm the guy to tell this piece of this story, and it will be special to the end of my life that I got to do it.
Well, I remember seeing you on the thing and being like so excited for you and like, oh, that's Emerson. I was so proud and excited. Tell people how they can come and see you in Byron Cellar.
Byron Cellar is running Fridays and Sundays. Fridays at 8 p.m., Sundays at 7 p.m. at the Whitefire Theater on Ventura in Sherman Oaks. Y'all, it's super accessible. It is 90 minutes, quick through, intermission. You can still go to dinner or the bar afterwards. Tickets are available at the6thact.com. That's THE6THACT.com. Please come. I love it. It's special. I'm in a long list of illustrious gentlemen who have played this role. And I think that whether you love Barbara or don't know anything about her, it is a great night of a silly romp at the theater.
When you are doing the information, sometimes I do this and I ask people to plug their thing and they don't know any of the information. And they're like, oh, we'll have to just get it later or whatever. And I'm like, Emerson's going to know every...
Are you kidding? Yes. For anyone, anything
that is
ever.
Who you are, and I admire it so much. And I also think you're a brilliant artist. You mentioned something in that last little bit that is going to be my final thought. I like this play. I like the story of it. I like the show busyness of it. But what really moves me about it is Jonathan has given so many artists that I am friends with and that I admire this amazing showcase. They're not the sidekick in the elevator with 2 lines. Yes. The sassy gay guy is the show. And I like Tom Lank's done it. I didn't get to see him in it, but Jay Rodriguez, people that I know. Oh. And what is it to be a part of that tradition? Do you know the other actors? Have you seen the other actors? It just feels like such a gift that he's given to a generation of people whose talents are like yours.
I literally had to scroll past like 6 different people in my phone alone that I know have done it, who I adore. And what I love is that the piece is so, the core is so strong, but the edges are so malleable that it's allowed so many different kinds of what I describe as like bravely, openly gay actors. And I say bravely not because, and I say that because so many of them were out like long before everyone else. Jay Rodriguez, literally the people you've named, Jay Rodriguez, Tom Lank, like they were famous on television back when we did not have a lot of out gay actors. And so to have a piece that's this wonderfully gay and specifically gay that allows them to stretch to the far edges of their talents, and 100 minutes, 90 minutes really is a showcase of a virtuoso work of a performer. And each of their performances are so incredibly different and still telling the same core truth of this story that like life and celebrity and performing and all of it's sort of insane and also sort of wonderful at the same time. And I think that's the genius of Jonathan's piece, is that I was a part of that 18 Alex Moore's, because even though I was the first regional, my friend Nick Searley opened the very next weekend in San Francisco after I opened in Palm Springs. Nick has done it at 18 theaters around the country, 18 different productions. And so it's incredibly special, this club of like proudly, specifically, flailingly, delightfully gay actors who have had the opportunity in this piece to really stretch and demonstrate to people that we are so much more than the like quippy gay on the side, that we deserve to be the center of the story, and our talents do as well.
Right, and get paid sometimes for it.
Yes.
Yeah,
even sometimes.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to assume who was getting paid and who wasn't. But some of those Laguna Playhouse, like 400 seats. Yeah,
I made real good money doing a play by myself, which is its own specific joy.
I love it.
We always joke that we do theater for love and TV and film for money.
Yeah,
but it's okay to do theater for money too.
Exactly.
We should make it.
Here's my final question: what's your favorite moment in the show? Why do you love it?
I really do love the Barbara Streisand "I'd Be Pretty" moment. It's sort of the one moment where you see the love for her own insecurities. Alex says, if you could build your own utopia, what would it be? And Jonathan has Barbara say, "I'd be pretty." Which there's a way to look at that really cynically. Like,
it's a bit of a jaw drop. In the audience, you're a little bit like, ugh. Like, it's a bit like exposing. Yeah. It just feels, it's very loaded.
There's a cynical version, right? That's like, you have everything in the world and people have told you you're beautiful now for 50 years. Like, what will it take? But what I love about what that says too is, though, in our business, that like no amount of success solves your things. Right. You have to solve them yourself, right? No, I always say to young actors now, the applause will never be long enough. Back to like, why do we do this? If you were doing this for the applause, it will never last long enough. Oscar winners wake up the next morning and go, what's my next project? Are people going to think that it wasn't as good as the thing that I just won for?
Right.
If you don't celebrate the now, if you don't do it because you love the work and love who you are in the work, there will never be enough adulation. And I love him having Barbara sort of admit the truth, that she, from the very beginning, was like, I should be funny, not try to be pretty. Because if I try to be pretty, people laugh at me. But if I am funny, people are laughing at me because I want them to, is one of her genius gifts and why she's so brilliant as an actress. And so I love how sort of honest it is and aware it is from Jonathan. And it does. Every night I can feel it sort of hit the audience, because I feel like if I've done the journey right of how much Alex loves her and how much she's actually for a moment exposing herself, there is a sort of, rather than you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. She gets to be a person behind the celebrity as well. So I really love that really sincere moment.
And something I've learned in the last few years is that I think we all have that thing from way, way back that you really can't shake. And that might be her thing. But I have a thing like that. And and it's like no amount of validation or whatever or intellectualizing, it's always sort of there. Yeah, I get it.
And it's the thing that at our best we manage, because we know it's not true. Like we've done the therapy, we've done the talks, we're aware, but it can heal it, but the scar still exists. Yeah. And so something can hit it the right way and it pulls that thing and we go, okay, no, I know that's not true. I know that's not real, but it's not everything like gets healed. Some of it just gets understood.
What a great note to end on. Emerson, you're a delight. I admire you. The show is terrific and keep on hustling. And I love this conversation.
Thank you, my friend. I adore you, and I love that you do this and the space you make for all of us. It's really special.
Thank you.
At all times, I adore you.
Thanks again to Emerson Collins. Go see his show, Buyer and Cellar. All right, so this happened. So my 60th birthday was recently. I talked a lot about that weekend with the mismatch game and the movie outing. But a couple of weeks later, I did something for myself that was sort of my 60th birthday treat, which is I went to a meditation retreat that I've been wanting to go to for a while now. It's called Meditation Party, and it's got 3 practitioners, Dan Harris, Jeff Warren, who's my total meditation crush. He's on the Calm app, and I love him. And someday we'll be married, and he'll be not straight. And a woman named Sebene, who I also love. I didn't know her as well. She's part of it. Anyway, I wanted to go to New York and go to this retreat because it's part meditation, but also like a bonding and a lightheartedness. They call it a party for a reason. But I couldn't swing the New York of it all. I couldn't afford it. And they have an online version. So I thought, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the online version live as it's happening in New York, and I'm going to go away somewhere close and affordable. So I found a little Airbnb in a town called Crestline, which is in the mountains as you're going to Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear. And I just found this thing on Airbnb, and I went there. And I have one friend that lives up there named Mark Samuel, who is an actor who has appeared in the Mismatch Game, and he's great. And so I was like, I'm going to try this and see if I can have a really, cool experience. And I got up there on the first day. It was just me and my dog Enzo, and we got to the cabin just in the nick of time before the thing was going to start. And I opened up my laptop, and I haven't figured out the Wi-Fi yet, but it was seconds away from starting. So I just used my iPhone as a hotspot, and I got in there, and the thing started, and they did a really good job with including the online people. And I had the most wonderful experience. I just relaxed into it. And I was like, oh, this is something I'm doing for me. I really enjoyed hearing from the people that were also part of the retreat. There was a lot going on in the chat room, and I got to ask a question about, I managed to keep my equanimity pretty well in terms of my mental state. But if I do something clumsy, I go to 11 and get so angry and I could kill a family of 4. So I asked them about that, and I got some really interesting insights from them. A lot of people related to that. And I fell in love with Crestline. It's really cute. Mark took me around, and my friend Rebecca joined me on the second day. And every little shop is beautifully curated, kind of hipstery, but just everything was so well done. And restaurants, and we hiked around the lake, and it's my new favorite place. I'm obsessed with it. And it was just so moving and enriching, and it was just what I wanted. And I thought I would come down the hill with all of the answers for my life. I didn't really so much, but I had a great time, and I was really enriched from it. And I did come down with sort of a new kind of vigor to figure out my life, and the challenges in terms of the work stuff. And it was great. So I encourage people to do things for themselves sometimes. This was an example of that, and it worked out great. And I'm gonna do those online things great, because you go away, you feel like you're in a different place. It's more affordable. It was a big win. So I loved it. All right. That's enough for this week. I want to give a shout out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for Placement Music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye.